Hey man, I like to be honest and transparent when I speak to people. When you're honest and you're transparent, it gives power to your message rather than, just get up here and preach. I don't like all that preaching mode and stuff. And with that being said, one of the things I've been struggling with lately is failing to acknowledge my enemy, failing to acknowledge our enemy, that is Satan. Um, a lot of the times when I'm being attacked in my life, I deny that it's him. I don't believe that it's him. I don't think that it's him. Uh, that's why I'm always vulnerable for spiritual or mental attack. And what I've learned from doing that is if you fail to acknowledge your enemy, then you will always be vulnerable for a spiritual attack. Um, the way that he works, he convinces you that you need something. He'll convince you that you need that or that you need this. And this is what he's been doing to me. And that desire or whatever it is that you're coveting, it's going to stop you from moving forward because he's going to convince you that you cannot move forward until you obtain that thing or whatever it is that you desire. But the thing about that is, we as humans, we always want stuff. We always desire. We'll never be happy or satisfied with anything else, with anything in this world. So whatever it is that Satan is convincing you that you need, I want to let you know right now, whenever you get it, you're still going to feel the same way. You may be happy for a small period of time, but everything in the world fades away. It all passes away. So whatever that desire it is, or whatever that thing it is that you want to possess, whenever you get it, you're still going to feel the same way, and you're going to be vulnerable for another satanic attack. So we, as followers of Christ, we have to change from the inside out, not from the outside in. So nothing in this world is going to satisfy us. And the reason that I say that is because this is more of a testimony than it is, a teaching or a message or anything. I'm just being transparent with people. I've struggled with wanting things in this world, and that's been one way that Satan has always been able to stop me from moving forward. And so with that being said, I read this book by Sun Tzu. It's called Art of War. And in that book, he spoke about knowing your enemy. When people go to war, they calculate the cost of going to that war. They calculate the possible losses. They calculate all these things and take these things into consideration. How big of a chance is it that we may lose this war? What is this enemy that we're fighting? What is he capable of? What are they capable of? And that's the same thing that we have to do. We have to calculate the cost of going to war before we do it. We have to know our enemy. And one thing that he does is he'll convince you that he's not there. He'll convince you that he's not real. Like I gave you an example a while ago, he'll give you a need or a desire or whatever, and you think that you have to have this in life to be happy, but that's not what it is that's bothering you. It's him that's making you feel like that, because you may get this or you may get that, and he's still going to be attacking you, telling you that you need this and you need that. And these desires that we have stop us from growing. So the reason that I'm making this video is it's important for us as followers of Yahushua HaMashiach, whom the world calls Jesus, our King, our Messiah. It's important for us who follow him to acknowledge our enemy. You have to acknowledge him. I've tried over and over again to ignore him. I've tried over and over again to deny that he's real, but it always turns out disastrous. All right, we have to calculate the cost of this war that we are fighting. You can go through your whole life not knowing your enemy. That's fine, but you're going to suffer a lot of loss. You're going to suffer a lot of defeat. You're going to go through life not having clarity for the things that are taking place in your life. With that being said, Paul in Ephesians chapter 6, he spoke about what I'm talking about right now, knowing our enemy and our spiritual armor. All right, so I made this list, and I want to read this. It's in Ephesians chapter 6. All right, Paul says, put on the complete armor of God for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age. against spiritual wickedness in the heavens. And because of this, take up the complete armor of God, so that you may have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all, to stand. So Paul must have known something that we don't know, because the way that he acknowledged the enemy right here shows that he had a different mentality, he had a different mindset. He lived knowing the enemy. So the first thing that Paul says on here is put on the complete armor of God. Why do we have to do that? For you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil. All right. So the schemes, meaning the tactics, he's manipulative. We have to put on the whole armor of God to be able to stand against this. All right. The second thing he says is because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. So what that means is we don't wrestle against humans. We don't wrestle against humans. Them people at your job, they're not your enemy. Your family, they're not your enemy. Whoever it is that you're at odds with, they're not your enemy, because we do not wrestle with flesh and blood. So if these people are not our enemy, then the question is, who is our enemy? Paul says, 1, principalities, all right, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age. So Paul says that principalities and authorities, these people are our enemies. When he says authorities, he's not necessarily talking about the police, even though sometimes that may be the case. But what he's talking about is those who have authority in this world, our leaders, our governors, our mayors, our presidents, whoever has authority in this world. These people are your enemy. But remember, it's not flesh and blood. He said, we fight against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual wickedness in the heavens. So he compared world rulers with the darkness of this age. And what this tells us is that the world rulers, the people who rule the world, they're spiritual forces of darkness. All right. So whenever you hear about celebrities worshiping Satan and all these people in high positions worshiping Satan, it's evidently, it's not a conspiracy theory, because Paul told us the same thing. We fight against spiritual wickedness in the heavens. So whenever he says spiritual wickedness in the heavens, he's talking about high places in this world. Everyone who's in a high position, all these people with authority, all these world rulers, these people are our enemies. But remember, it's not actually them. It's the demons, it's the spiritual forces of darkness. These people are the people that we are against. Paul also told us that Satan is the god of this world. All right. So you have to understand the way that this world works out, the way that people rise to the top like that. People don't just blow up. They don't just become famous because they're good people or because they're talented. They may be talented, but to make it up to the top of the pyramid in this world, you have to go through this cycle. All right. So all these principalities, these authorities, the world rulers of the darkness of this age, the spiritual wickedness in heavenly places, these are our enemy. And we have to acknowledge this. You know, you don't wrestle against flesh and blood. A good example of this is Yahusha, who the world calls Jesus. One thing you'll notice is if he ever got into it with someone, or if he ever came into a position where he had to rebuke someone, he never spoke directly to that person. He would go straight to the spirit inside of that person, directly to the spirit of that person. And this is what you call spiritual warfare 101. That is a great example. And we as followers of him, we have to start walking in the spirit and stop walking in the flesh, because the flesh opposes the spirit. So whenever you walk in the flesh, you're going to hate God, even if you want to love him, because the flesh opposes the spirit. And the things of the spirit are not the same things of the flesh. So whenever you walk in the spirit, you're going to want to do what God wants you to do, what Yahuwah wants you to do. But whenever you walk in the flesh, you're going to be an enemy of him. Even though you may want to do what's right, you may want to please him. But if you walk in the flesh, you're naturally going to be opposed to him. All right. So it's important that we start engaging in spiritual warfare, especially in these times that's coming. If you walk in the flesh, you're going to be confused. If you're satisfying the flesh, if you're seeking self-pleasure, anything to do with yourself, anything to do with feeding your flesh, today, in these days, we need to starve our flesh, whether that's praying more, abstaining from our phones, abstaining from eating certain foods, abstaining from watching certain entertainment. We have to consume more spiritual things and starve our flesh, because the flesh is what makes us weak. All right. So with that being said, I'm gonna read this last passage. Paul said, because of all these things, take up the complete armor of God, so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and have done all to stand. So that last sentence, Paul says, and having done all to stand. That means if you have done these things, you have exhausted all possibilities. All right. So whenever this fight is done, said and done, you want to be able to say, I exhausted all possibilities. You want to be able to say that I done everything that I could. All right. So there's a lot more to this spiritual armor, but I'll say that for another video. In this video, I just wanted to share about knowing our enemy. If you ignore him, you will suffer loss and you will suffer defeat.